Well, I was desert, came on up from New Orleans. Came upon a tornado, shone out in the sky. While we round all day, with the blues in my eye. Hey, 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 all you young girls, wherever you're at, I got a brand new Cadillac, got a Ferrari too. Yeah, sure enough, baby, sure enough, I got the time to teach your life, but you like some too. I got the time to teach your life, but you like some too. Sure enough, baby, sure enough, baby,
Captain Beefheart is a man who was driven in pursuit of his musical vision to the borderline between imbalance and genius, particularly in his challenging and bizarre masterpiece, Trout. He's a composer who invented his own Dada-esque blend of blues, jazz, poetry and rock.
Hey, 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 all you young girls, whatever you do. Hey, 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 all you young girls, whatever you do.
A kind of psychedelic shaman who frequently bullied his musicians and sometimes alarmed his fans, Don somehow remained one of rock's great innocents. Unlike so many of his peers from the mad world of the 1960s underground, Captain Beefheart survived rock and roll. Today, however, he lives a virtual recluse, suffering from a long-term illness. Van Vliet has not been seen in public for several years and spends his time painting in his Northern Californian home. This is the story of one of rock's great mavericks, and it began in the quiet Los Angeles suburb of Glendale in 1941. As an only child whose grandparents lived next door, Don was always the centre of attention, and his artistic talents were indulged. He claims to have been sculpting since the age of 4. At the age of 13, he was offered an art scholarship to Europe, but instead his parents decided to move to the desert town of Mojave, a place that was to have an indelible effect on his imagination. Here, Van Vliet's creative talents found an outlet not through fine art, but through music, when he discovered the old blues masters.
He had dropped out of school by that time and spent most of his time staying at home. His girlfriend lived in the house, and his grandmother lived in the house, and his aunt and his uncle lived across the street. And his father had had a heart attack. His father drove a Helms bread truck, and part of the time Don was helping out by taking over the bread truck route and driving up to Mojave, and the rest of the time he would just sit at home and listen to rhythm and blues records and scream at his mother to get him a Pepsi. So I used to hang out over there after school. We'd eat the stale stuff that was left over from the bread truck, usually pineapple buns, and listen to R&B records till 3 o'clock in the morning.
It was around this time that Don had formed the Magic Band from local musicians and created the name Captain Beefheart in a jokey homage to his R&B heroes like Screaming Jay Hawkins.
Oh, somebody walking, babe. Oh, somebody walking my home. All I did was just want to love you, babe. Oh, that's why you do me wrong.
Don was a master at capturing the nuances of these blues artists and their vocal, and he could catch how Howling Wolf, the sound of Howling Wolf and Muddy Waters, and he could recreate. He didn't copy exactly, but he could recreate that sound. He had a tremendous blues voice, and basically we played a lot of those tunes back in the early days.
Oh, I'm gonna take my clothes in the morning. Oh, I'm gonna hit the road, you know. Oh, I'm gonna pack my clothes in the morning. Oh, I'm gonna hit the road, you know. Somebody walking, baby, in my home, you know.
We played some incredible places like the Elks Lodge and even country and western bars. And you know, even in spite of the fact that we were different, once we played, I think that's why they call it, the name the Magic Band really stuck. Because no matter what we played it with conviction. We became local heroes amongst the community.
The growing teenage music market had record company scouts looking for an American blues band to compete with British bands like the Rolling Stones and the Animals. A&M Records thought they were signing such a product in Captain Beefheart.
Diddy Wah Diddy went down fairly well, but after that things took a turn for the worse. They had visions of us becoming a kind of like David Gates and Bread, you know, a pop band, which we were not. And their efforts into trying to make us a pop band as opposed to a blues band was a disaster.
Beefheart's first record deal followed what would become a familiar route, and it ended amid bad feeling and lawsuits. Meanwhile, Bob Krasnow at Buddha Records thought he'd make another attempt at turning Beefheart into Mick Jagger. But while other young Californian musicians were creating the idyllic teenage landscape of the beach and the drag strip, Captain Beefheart was already heading in a new direction. Weaving a darker musical language from the desert and the wilder currents of the blues, the band moved to Los Angeles to record their first album, Safe as Milk.
Safe as Milk was already moving along pretty well when I got into the group, but Don started changing the arrangements. It was kind of, I would say, 70% there when we finally moved down to Hollywood, and we lived in Laurel Canyon. We rented a house in Laurel Canyon, and that's when Ry Cooder sort of entered the picture.